Hey guys, it's Darwin here with more backpacking gear to help you get ultralight without breaking the bank. So, not too long ago, I made a video called Ultralight Gear on a Budget, showing you guys some gear that I found to help you get your pack weight down without spending too much money. And the video got really good response. You guys loved it, I loved doing it, so I figured I would make a part 2 and show you some more gear that you can pick up on the cheap to help you start doing ultralight backpacking. Now, as I said in the last video, there's tons of great gear out there, and obviously there's better options than what I'm gonna show you today, but if you're just looking at getting into it and don't wanna invest too much capital, these are definitely great options to help you get started. All right, so in that last video, I showed you an awesome little stove called the BRS Ultralight. I really love this guy. You guys loved it. So obviously just a stove is not gonna be a complete cook system. You also need a cook pot, cup, pan, something to put on here to cook your food. Now the cook pot that I've used for a better part of 2 years is the Snow Peak 700 titanium mug. I absolutely love this piece of gear. It goes with me just about everywhere, even when I'm going stoveless. It's lightweight and it's more than enough room for what I need to cook on the trail. Now the 700 weighs in at 3.2 ounces, and that's without a stuff sack or a lid, and they're typically gonna run you about $45. Now the pot that Snuggles uses is the Snow Peak 600 titanium mug, which is a little bit smaller than mine. And these guys weigh in at 2.8 ounces, and you can typically find them for about $35. Now again, more than she'll ever need, because most of the time on the trail, I'd say about 90% of the time, we're only boiling 2 cups of water. So 90% of the time we're just boiling water, we're not really cooking anything in the pot. So even though these Snow Peak mugs are great, there's a little bit cheaper alternative on the market, and that is the Toaks 550 titanium cook pot. Now the Toaks 550 is 2.8 ounces, and get this, they're only $25 over on Amazon.com. Now that's 2.8 ounces without the lid and without the stuff sack that they do come with. And the mug's volume is 19.4 ounces, which is more than enough to boil those 2 cups of water. Now if you feel like the 550 might be a little bit too small for you, they also make the 750, and it weighs in at 3.9 ounces. Now that's 3.9 ounces with the lid and the stuff sack, and the 750 is gonna run you $35. So you can get a 750 milliliter mug for the same price that you can get the Snow Peak 600, so definitely cheaper and a great way to get ultralight. Now if you get the Toaks 550 mug and the BRS Ultralight stove, that's a complete cook system that only weighs in at 3.7 ounces and is only gonna cost you $41. So a complete ultralight backpacking cook system for only $41. You can't beat that. Okay, so next up is a sleep system. So again, in the last video, I showed you an awesome sleeping pad called the Outdoorsman Lab Gear Ultralight Sleeping Pad. A killer budget ultralight sleeping pad that won't break the bank. But obviously you need something to cover yourself up when you're laying on the pad. And there's tons of great ultralight sleeping bags and quilts on the market, but obviously they're gonna be super pricey. Now one of the ways a lot of hikers and backpackers are lowering their base weight is switching from a traditional mummy bag to a quilt. Obviously because they weigh less, because they don't have a back on them, they don't have a hood on them, but they still do an awesome job. And last year I did the same, switching from a traditional mummy bag to an awesome down quilt. And I used the Enlightened Equipment Revelation quilt. A super amazing quilt, and I'll never go back to sleeping bags. However, they can be quite pricey. Now the Enlightened Equipment quilts are super customizable and made to order, but they're gonna start at $255, and that's for a 30-degree quilt. And that 30-degree quilt is gonna weigh in right at 16.5 ounces. So not too shabby for an ultralight quilt, $255. But what if you don't want to invest that much money in your sleep system? Scouring the internet, Amazon, and eBay, I found this guy, which is the Aegis Max Ultralight Down Quilt / sleeping bag. And this thing is awesome. Just like that Enlightened Equipment base Revelation quilt, it's a 30-degree bag, 800 fill goose down. It weighs 16 ounces, so it's actually lighter, and that's 16 ounces with this awesome little stuffed compression sack. It's made of a 20D sil nylon, and are you ready for this? They're only $73 over on Amazon.com. So $73 for a 16 ounce 30-degree down quilt. Amazing. Now, when I first got this guy, I was kind of on the fence thinking, there's no way this is gonna be good at all. There's no way it's actually gonna be warm or be comfortable. This thing has surprised the hell out of me. I've used it a handful of times now and I absolutely love it. Super comfortable, it keeps you super warm, and it has a ton of awesome options. Now, unlike my Revelation quilt, it does have a zipper, so you can either leave that zipper open and make it a quilt, or you can zip it up to make it a little bit more like a mummy bag. However, it does not have a hood on it, so it's much more like a quilt. But again, at 16 ounces for $73, you cannot beat this guy. If you take the Aegis Max Ultralight quilt and you pair it with that Outdoorsman Labs sleeping pad, you have a full sleep system that only weighs 1 pound 15 ounces. 1 pound, 15 ounces for an awesome sleep system that's gonna get you through most conditions. And the best part about it is that system is only gonna cost you $121. Hell, the sleeping pad that I use was like 130 bucks. So a full sleep system cheaper than what I bought my damn sleeping pad for. Not too shabby if you're just getting into ultralight backpacking. All right, so the next one that I have for you is actually one that I got a lot of requests for, and that is a shelter. So there's obviously tons of different ultralight options that you can get a shelter. You can just use a tarp and make some sort of a tarp tent. You can use a hammock, and there's tons of different tents out on the market. All the way from the tent that Snuggles and I carried in 2015 and 16 on the AT, which is the Big Aegis Copper Spur UL2, which is an awesome tent if you have two people. I definitely suggest checking that out. To the tent that I'm carrying now and will be carrying for my hike of the PCT next year, which is the Z-Pax Duplex Ultralight Cuban Fiber tent. The most amazing tent I've ever owned, but that tent is super, super expensive, costing over $500. So there's a lot of people out there that aren't as crazy as me and aren't gonna invest that type of money in a shelter. So what's a decent budget ultralight tent? Now, a super popular tent that a lot of thru hikers use on the AT and on the PCT is the Big Aegis Fly Creek UL1. It's a freestanding tent weighing in at 2 pound, 2 ounces, which is incredible because it comes with poles, it comes with stakes, a fly, a tent, everything you need. Awesome tent, super dependable, super well made, and a lot of hikers use that. But even that tent is gonna cost you anywhere from 250 bucks to $300, which is also pretty damn pricey. Now again, I highly suggest that tent if you have that type of a budget and you're wanting a great one-person tent. But an awesome alternative to that tent is this one, which is the Gear Top Ultralight one-person tent. Now, unlike the Fly Creek, this is not a freestanding tent. It does use trekking poles, which is what I actually prefer. I love having a piece of gear that utilizes another piece of gear, so I have things with dual purposes. It tends to have a little bit more room than the Fly Creek though, because it has a double vestibule. It's made of a 20D sil nylon, and the coolest thing about this tent is it comes in 2 separate pieces, so you can either use it as a tent with a fly on top of it, or you can ditch the tent and you can set it up just as a tarp tent, which is super, super cool. Now, when you get this guy, it comes with the tent, it comes with the fly, the stuff sack, and all the stakes and guidelines that you need to set it up, and it weighs in at 2 pounds, 6 ounces. So 2 pounds, 6 ounces is not too terrible. And the best part about it is it only cost $100. So $100 for just over 2 pounds of a tent that's super versatile, that has double vestibules, that utilizes your trekking poles. This guy is pretty awesome for the price. Now, I've spent a little bit of time setting it up and playing with it, and so far I like it quite a bit. Now, obviously, coming from my Z-Pax Duplex, it's a little bit heavy for me and it's a little bit overkill for me, but if you are trying to get into ultralight backpacking on a budget, this would be a great first tent to pick up, just to try it, just to see if you like it. And then as you continue and progress as an ultralight backpacker, you can ditch this guy and get a little bit nicer of a tent. But again, $100 for just over 2 pounds, you kinda can't beat that. All right, and last but not least, if you are gonna be using this tent or the Z-Packs tent, you need some sort of way to set it up, or maybe you just need some really good trekking poles, but trekking poles. So the trekking pole that I use is the Black Diamond Ergo Carbon Cork. I love these things. Love them for a handful of different reasons. They're made of carbon, so they're only weighing in at 18 ounces for the pair. They have dual flick locks, which I love. I can't stand barrel locks. And they have cork grips, which is a must-have for me because the cork actually absorbs sweat, so you're not getting sweaty palms and getting blisters while you're hiking all day long. Now, as much as I do love these guys, they are quite expensive, and they're typically gonna cost you about $160. Now, sometimes you can find them a little bit cheaper, and obviously there are some better options. You don't have to go carbon. You can go with aluminum and cut that weight down, but a good trekking pole is typically gonna cost you between $100 and $180. So again, if you're just getting into ultralight backpacking and don't wanna make that investment, there's another really great option on the market that's super similar to that trekking pole, and that's the Cascade Mountain Carbon Quick Lock. Just like the Black Diamond, they have a dual flick lock. They're completely made of carbon, and they have the cork handle. So super similar to my Black Diamond trekking poles. The pair weighs in at only 15.6 ounces, which is lighter than my trekking pole, and they're only $45 for the pair. So 45 bucks for a pair of trekking poles that's super similar to mine, and they weigh less. Now, I have personally never used those trekking poles, but I know a lot of people that have tried them and are absolutely loving them. Now, are they gonna have the type of warranty and craftsmanship that the Black Diamond have? No. Probably not. But again, if you're aspiring to be an ultralight backpacker and you don't have all that moolah to drop on some super fancy expensive poles, definitely check those out. So I really love doing these budget gear videos. You guys love them. I'm able to find out some new awesome gear and share them with you so you can get out on the trail, get ultralight, and get more into backpacking. So I'm gonna be doing a lot more of these in the future. What are some pieces of gear that you want to see me review and talk about? Leave your suggestions in the comment box below. If you haven't had a chance yet, go over and check me out on Instagram. I'm posting a lot of new photos of some of the things that Snuggles and I have going on throughout the week, plus some pictures from some past hikes, so go check those out. If you found any value in this video, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and as always guys, thanks for watching.